Hi there, this is Mo Volans with Tuts Plus, back with another quick tip, and we've been looking at essential workhorse effects and processors. Now, we've already looked at classic compressors, and we're going to be taking a look at classic EQs, like modeled EQs, that I think are really essential to have in your collection. In the last quick tip, I actually looked at musical high-pass filters and, essential plugins or processors at least that you should be using in your mix to ensure that you don't, overhype things and color things. I'm going to take a little bit of a different angle with this quick tip and show you a processor that I think you should really have. And it's very, very simple, and it is just a quick tip, but it's something you can't really overlook. Now, it's transient design, transient designers, transient shapers. They get called a few different things. For instance, Logic has something called the enveloper in the dynamics section, and this is actually a transient designer. Now, what a transient designer does is that it can enhance or decrease the attack transient of a sound and increase or decrease the decay or sustain transient portion of the sound. In this case, it's called the release. Some of them call it the decay, some of them call it the sustain. I'd say it's the sustain part, but realistically, it's making the attack or the start of the sound sharper or softer, and then filling out the sustain, like increasing room sound or increasing the ring of a snare or decreasing that area. So it's really the two main portions of a sound. And if you've got a drum loop, it'll clamp down on every single hit. So it'll work on one shots, and it'll work on drum loops or recordings of drums or any other percussive sound, to be honest with you. It works best on drums just because they've got the most obvious transient sounds within them, but you really can use it on anything. I tend to use it on guitars that maybe are a little bit too plucky in nature, or percussion sounds that you want to soften up to make them sit in the mix. If you, say, got a bongo loop or bongo recording that's sticking out of the mix because it's a bit spiky in nature, you can just soften off the initial attacks of those sounds to make it sit right. So let's have a listen to it on drums. I'm not going to use this enveloper. I'm going to use an emulation, because really that's sort of what we're concentrating on, of the original SPL unit. And this is the more modern look. Here's the original SPL Transient Designer, by the way, the rack-mounted version, not necessarily the original one, but probably the most recent incarnation of it. But this is the one that UAD have. You can buy it directly from SPL. But there are various models of this again. Different people are doing different versions of this. Flux do one called the Bittersweet, I think. There is now something in the Reason rack extension store that does something similar. Like I say, Logic's got it, and I'm pretty sure that Cubase has one as well. I'm covering these now because they are prevalent. Everybody is starting to supply these essential tools, so you probably will have access to them. This, in my opinion, is the best one in software. If you want my opinion, that's it. This is hands down the best one. It's made originally by SPL. It's now available on UAD. Endorsed by SPL, same one, just runs on DSP, but this is really, really simple and just has the best sound for me. So 3 knobs: attack, sustain, and output gain. Now the output gain is great because you need to tame the output gain. I think the Ableton one has a limiter on the end of it, which is really useful. I may be wrong there, but I think it's the Ableton one has a little limiter section on the end, but I know that definitely the Native Instruments one does have a limiter, so that's really, really cool. But let's have a listen to this on some drums. So these are just some really ambient sounding drums. Now if I increase the attack, you have to watch the output level. And let's power it off. Now that immediately sounds softer. You can really exaggerate those attack transients. Or you can soften them. And almost completely remove them. And you get used to it because when you turn it off, it now sounds sharp again. Go the other way. Now, if you want to increase that attack even more, you can decrease the sustain. And you can almost be left with just the attack portion of the sound. If you want to increase the sustain, you can just whack it up, and you end up with all the noise and the reverb and the crunch and the ringing of each sound completely exaggerated. Now, I find that it's quite nice to increase the sustain and the attack slightly, and it acts sort of like a compressor. It's sort of like quite a nice enhancement. It's pretty subtle. If you want to tidy things up, you can increase the attack slightly and decrease the sustain slightly. So essentially, there's two ways you can use this plugin. For an enhancement, a slight enhancement or an extreme enhancement, or you can use it as an actual tool to remove an offensive bit of the sound that might be getting in the way of you mixing it correctly. So like I said, if you've got something that's a little harsh or a little spiky and it's a problem, you can remove those transients and smooth them off. If you've got something that's got too much reverb or too much room sound, you can decrease that with decreasing and attenuating that sustain level of each sound. Now, how you use it is up to you, creatively or as a tool or a bit of both, but it really is an absolute secret weapon and an essential tool to go for, especially on drum bus treatment, on a parallel bus or whatever. And it's just an awesome little effect. So I would grab one, no matter which brand you go for. This is the best one, but try some others. Definitely try the Native Instruments one. I think that's called the Transient Master. That's got the limiter on it. So if you don't want to be messing around with this output level and you just want to whack a limiter on, you can do that with the Transient Master from Native. So hopefully that's useful. Go and try it yourself on your drums, heat them up, and make your mixes better. Any suggestions welcome, put them in the comments, and I'll speak to you soon.